Yes, sir. We are live. Amazing. I'm doing the old shuffle dance. Amazing, folks. What's going on? How are you doing? Hopefully, you are having a great Sunday. Let me get rid of this. All right, guys. Oh, my goodness. Technical difficulty. Tough business we're in, but we're here. Hey guys, how are you guys doing? In case if you guys are unfamiliar with me, I am the conservative, and I am here to speak about politics and current affairs. Mainly current affairs that are happening in this great country of ours. And we are here to have an honest conversation about the very issues in our country and the very resolutions that we can have to resolve the issues that are in our country, or if we can't resolve it, well then at least you'll be able to know the issues that are plaguing this great country of ours. Okay, so for the people that are joining me today in this lovely Sunday evening, just need you guys to do a couple things for me. Okay. First thing that I need you to do is if you are joining the live stream, you see it, hit the like button. All right. It helps with the algorithm, allows YouTube to promote this live stream. Also, leave a comment during and after the show. It just does well with the interaction of the show because the more interaction, the more eyeballs we will get from the interaction. Um, and then obviously, I will drop a link to allow you guys to be a part of the show if you want to have a discussion. So that and the one thing you have to do when you're a one man crew on your YouTube channel is that you have to know how to um, multitask. Got to be able to put on a whole lot of hats at once. I don't have a team. I am the team. So the next thing that I'm going to add is if you like to join the show, there's the link right there in order for you to join the show. And I will also drop a link in the comments section. So anyone that's willing to join the show may do so. And we can have an amazing discussion about the show itself. All right. So for those of you that are joining the live stream, if you would like to join the show, the link is at the bottom. If you want to join the show, also click click. Also, or I'll leave the banner again. Leave a comment during and after the show. Hit the like button if you're tuning in into the show. Leave a comment during and after the show. Obviously, like the live stream. And if you'd like to join the show, the link is at the bottom as well as in the comment section. Okay, guys, 11 minutes in. Let's get into the show itself. So, you see the title up top. Here is why the people have lost faith in the government. Now, why did I come up with that title? Well, because the government has weaponized, the government has abused their power in order to do the very things that they feel is in their best interest and not of the interest of the American people. The government has been known to lie, 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 lie. And when in doubt, they lie some more. The government has been known to, in the past and presently, they have been known to do things based on how they feel things should get done without necessarily having the American people in hand, or not necessarily having the American people in mind while doing so. Thus, being able to compromise the very safety and security of the American people. Okay. Case in point, look at the Bush administration and the way that Bush handled the invasion in Iraq, and he did it all on a lie, and he knew he was lying, and yet he went out and invaded Iraq anyway because he wanted to do what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. You see, Bush had a agenda. His agenda was to eradicate so-called, well, not so-called, but he wanted to eradicate terrorism at any cost. You see, when 9/11 when the 9/11 attacks occurred, George Bush made it his priority to get rid of any to not only go after the very people that were responsible for those attacks, but any anyone that he deemed a terroristic threat, he wanted to eradicate, even if they were not necessarily responsible for the September 11th attacks. Also, also, the government looking to want to weaponize people's freedoms, all in the name of getting a vaccine that will not that will not necessarily provide um, protection for the people, but instead could give them potential problems down the line. These are the very things that your government is willing to do. They are willing to use you as a guinea pig just to get compliance. So whether it's um, ge- engaging in an unjust war, whether it's getting a unnecessary vaccine, or or whether it's engaging in a in a illegal war, the US government will stop at nothing to get what they want when they want, however they want to get it, and not put the American people in mind while doing this. You see, they have their own agenda, and their own agenda is based on a globalistic ideology and not based on protecting the American people. They care more about protecting other entities that are willing to lobby for their ideas. Case in point, each time that we go to war, for some reason, all of the companies that are responsible for making um, weapons for war tend to get very rich. So these companies that are responsible for making weapons for war, their stock tends to become very rich. So they tend to be the biggest lobbyists for war, even though we are now engaging in not only did we engage in one unjust war, but we're engaging in another unjust war. Okay. If you don't know the type of war that we're talking about presently, that is the war in Ukraine, where we are funneling billions of dollars to Ukraine. We're bundling billions of dollars worth of weapons to Ukraine for Ukraine to attack Russia. Okay, a non NATO country, we are funneling billions of dollars to help a non NATO country attack Russia. But more on that later. The main thing that I want to focus on, well, one of the things that I wanted to focus on was one of the reasons why the people have lost faith in the government. And the one of the main reasons why we the people have lost faith in the government was because we were lied to way back in 2003. You remember? Do you remember what I said earlier about the invasion in Iraq? We invaded Iraq, and it was all based on the idea that the dictator at the time, Saddam Hussein, had weapons of mass destruction that turned out to be absolutely false. Didn't stop us from invading Iraq, but we did it anyway. And to show you how, and to give you an example of how it was, here are a few clips that I want you to watch. And I will go over the clips as they play to explain to you the true meaning of how your government can use deception in trying to convince you of trying to agree with something that is unwarranted. Here's a clip.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
This essential detail was inspired by a key figure in this adventure, Richard Pearl. On the afternoon of 9/11,
Now keep in mind, Richard Pearl was the advisor to the president. I want you to keep that in mind.
Pentagon advisor places a call to the president's speechwriter.
I was on the telephone with David Frum, and I said to David on the afternoon of 9/11, whatever else the president says, he should say that we will hold responsible the states that support terrorism.
You see, I find that very, very interesting. So, um, this guy who was the advisor to the president tells President Bush that he needs to say that he needs to go after not just the people that were responsible for the 9/11 attacks, but anyone that they deem as a terrorist. This is what now will lead to a chain of events where America winds up creating a unnecessary problem that winds up um, costing not only money and lives, but also it winds up making a brand new regime. And we will get into that later on as these clips are being presented.
It is a strategic break from the more modest policies of Bush's predecessors.
I believe it represented a recognition that we would never succeed against the terrorists if we went after them one at a time. And as long as governments were facilitating the organization, training, equipping, financing of terrorist organizations, we were never going to get it under control.
But the thing is, there's no evidence that there were other countries or that there were other terroristic networks that were responsible for 9/11. Their ideology, well, Bush's ideology is that if they deem you a terrorist, we are coming after you. It doesn't matter if you had nothing to do with 9/11. You're deemed a terrorist, we will come after you. Because Bush believed in democracy for the world. Not just democracy for America, but democracy for the world. And the entire world had to get on the US's program or else.
An ambitious program for all-out war, the stated goal of a group to which Richard Pearl belongs, the neoconservatives. Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, Paul Wolfowitz, Douglas Feith.
All of these guys played a big role in the big lie. All right. Dick Cheney, the vice president, um, Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, Condoleezza Rice, these two other guys here. All of these people were advisors to the president in creating the big lie. And it's amazing that these people can come together and basically tell the big lie and have you people convinced in the lie. It's amazing. These are government officials, all of them Republicans, all right? All of them Republicans who clearly, if you understand the Republican Party is really for the American people. And yet these people cared more about doing what they wanted to do when they want to do it. However, it got done, even if they knew was unwarranted. It's amazing. Sorry. And that's the thing. Here's another clip on how this came about. Now, initially, I had all of these clips set up, but it's okay. Had them in numerical order. I'm gonna have to clip it one at a time. No problem.
On the evening of 9/11, the president's saying, well, maybe, we'll be going after Iraq now. And somebody said, well, that would be against international law. The president responded, I don't care. We're going to kick some ass.
Unbelievable. Now you heard that with your own eyes. I mean, you heard that with your very own ears. You heard that. Um, Bush, President Bush at the time said, "Look, we know that Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11, but we're going to go after him because we deem him a terrorist, completely ignoring international law." And do you want to know why he did that? Well, because because he believes that he is the leader of the free world. He believes we are the United States and we do whatever the hell we want to. We're the ones that provide aid all throughout the world. People come to us for help. We don't need them for help. All right. We impose our beliefs. We impose our morals, and we impose our infrastructure. Well, we are the ones that provides infrastructure for any country that needs it. We don't need anything from any other country. And this is the type of narcissistic behavior that President Bush demonstrated. And that's what led to the big lie. Hey, um, we're just going to invade Iraq just because we feel like it. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks, how anybody feels about it. No one's going to get in our way. All right. We are the United States. We do whatever the hell we want, even if it compromises the American people's safety and security.
2 days after the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were attacked, the president was at Camp David with his senior officials, and Mr. Wolfowitz was telling the president, the Iraq and Saddam Hussein is the real problem.
It took the neoconservatives only 48 hours to prevail, change the regime in Baghdad, subjugate Iraq, a simpler objective than that of destroying the nebulous terrorist.
That is incredible. Now you guys seen that for yourselves. It's incredible that the United States of America can just impose their will at any time, and people are supposed to just stand by and allow us to do it. It's amazing. At the time of 9/11, when the 9/11 attacks occurred, the main people that were responsible, based on our intelligence, based on the intelligence that was gathered, the main people that were involved were the people in Afghanistan. That's the reason why we were in Afghanistan in the first place. The Al Qaeda terrorist group were the ones that were responsible. And the main ringleader in that group was Osama bin Laden, the most wanted man in the world. That was the guy that we should have put our focus on. But instead, we put our focus on another person who had nothing to do with the September 11th attacks. And and what they did was that they end up wanting to go into and invade a country that was already destabilized and invade it just because they can. Here is more of an example of what I'm saying.
Appears eager to move on to another war.
I stand by those words. Afghanistan is still just the beginning. If anybody harbors a terrorist, they're a terrorist. If they fund a terrorist, they're a terrorist.
You mind that this was in November 26th, about 2 months after the worst attack on U.S. soil.
If they house terrorists, they're terrorists. I mean, I can't make it any more clearly to other nations around the world. If they develop weapons of mass destruction that will be used to terrorize nations, they will be held accountable.
The president has barely finished his speech when Secretary of Defense
By the way, I have to I have to let you guys know, just like the last two clips that I've shown, that this is for fair use only. All right, fair use, fair use. This is used to critique and to discuss, um, and that is the reason why I'm using these clips. So, fair use warning, fair use.
Rumsfeld meets with General Tommy Franks at Central Command in Tampa, Florida. Franks controls a massive area from Africa to Asia and leads the war in Afghanistan. But Rumsfeld has something else in mind: Iraq. He orders General Franks to prepare a plan of attack. Iraq.
Amazing. So, Donald Rumsfeld, wanting to actually carry on with the president's plan of wanting to go into anybody's country that they deem are terrorists, confides with general I mean well briefs with General Franks that they should do a different course of action and start their focus on bringing their special forces to Iraq to attack Iraq, even though they will be violating international law, and they wanted to do it with no beliefs or with no evidence that Iraq had anything to do with the September 11th attack. But they're going to attack them anyway because We are the United States, and if we deem you as a terrorist, we will attack you.
An easy target. Since its invasion of Kuwait and stinging defeat in 1991, the country has been under international administration. Despite the drubbing and the terrible sanctions that are decimating his people, Saddam has remained in power. In 1998, he even drove out UN inspectors sent to disarm him. For the neoconservatives, he is the devil.
Saddam was a dangerous man. Dangerous first to his own citizens and dangerous to the rest of the world.
That is amazing. Amazing. So once again, this is the United States proving that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want to do it, however they want to do it. We'll follow another clip. So just because they deemed Saddam Hussein to be dangerous, now they come up with this belief that they just need to attack him at any cost.
WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological, nuclear. For months, this deadly arsenal will be at the heart of the Iraqi manipulation.
And keep in mind, this is exactly what they needed to bring up in order to come up with the with the reason to invade Iraq. This is part of the big lie. Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. I want you guys to pay attention to this and keep that in mind.
Stakes in a formidable power struggle between war's supporters and its opponents.
I was listening to briefings, detailed, top-secret briefings from the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and other intelligence organizations. And they all believed very strongly that Saddam had multiple programs to develop weapons of mass destruction.
While they can believe it, but they didn't have any proof of it. They're all going based on a belief because they all want to get this dangerous man, Saddam Hussein. Amazing.
In reality, that harmonious unanimity does not exist. For years, American intelligence has been monitoring Iraq and has found nothing.
We spend billions, literally billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars spent. Billions of dollars spent just to see if Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
A year with what we call national technical means, which everyone knows.
Billions of tax dollars spent. Your money is spent just to see if, just to supervise Iraq, babysit Iraq, to make sure that they are not developing any weapons of mass destruction.
Those are satellites, and they not only take images, but they have all kinds of other sensor data on that thing, okay? And guess what?
Really? And yes, tell us what happened? What happened?
Not one WMD site was found in Iraq since about 1991.
Really? However, the Bush administration stated that Iraq, that Saddam Hussein could have weapons of mass destruction. So even if you were to give him the benefit of the doubt that he possibly could have it, the defense alliance had spent billions of dollars putting out satellites, all just to monitor Iraq to see if they're developing these weapons of mass destruction, just so that they can keep them in check to make sure that they wouldn't carry out any type of terroristic threats. And guess what? None were found. Yet this administration will still carry on invading Iraq. Why? Because they're the United States. Because we're the United States, and according to them, they can do whatever they want.
The giant of electronic espionage, the NSA, the National Security Agency, remains empty-handed. William Binney, former technical director at the NSA, was among those scrutinizing Iraq.
There was no information collected by NSA that indicated that he continued his weapons of mass destruction program, or even that he had weapons of mass destruction.
Amazing. But despite all of that, the Bush administration still decided that we needed to invade Iraq.
This is no surprise. Saddam Hussein's arsenal had been destroyed after the Gulf War.
Smoking gun, right there. See that? See where my arrow's at? Smoking gun. These were the weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein once had. Well, uh, they will be resembled useless considering the fact that the U.S. destroyed his weapons of mass destruction. There they are, right there. See it? His weapons of mass destruction were in a puff of clouds. So, once again, the government going on the big lie and trying to convince you to go along with it, because if the American people cannot go along with it, then it will just look as if we're just invading any country and killing whoever we want to. Here's your proof. Here's Saddam's weapons of mass destruction that he's supposed to use uh, for terroristic reasons. So much for that. That is amazing. Um, there you go. And this is the thing that the Bush administration already knew. All right. They knew all of this. Um, the CIA even knew about it. All right. Let's go back. Let's go back to the stream again.
WMD's weapons of remains empty-handed. William Binney, former technical director at the NSA, was among those scrutinizing Iraq.
There was no.
Yeah, the thing is, they're part of this is the NSA, National Security Agency. All right. They are the ones that were spying. Oh no, wouldn't even say spying, but they were the ones that were keeping Iraq in check. All right. They knew themselves that there were no weapons of mass destruction. As a matter of fact, they knew that Iraq hasn't obtained weapons of mass destruction since 1991. All right. So what you're going to see among future clips is how the U.S. came up with this elaborate plan to to fabricate the idea that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction to justify um, their wanting to invade Iraq, even though they had no reason to. And that's what I wanted to show you. Here's another clip that I want to show you guys, because it's very, very important to know that your government can lie to you at any time. Anytime you hear the government telling you something, I mean telling you that they're doing something, you really need to do your homework and check it out first. And please do not take what they say for face value, because these people will lie to you. And you would thought that George Bush, being a Republican and really supposing to be the president for the people, you would think that Bush would do what was in the best interest of the American people. Yeah, well, guess what? All right. Um, a lot of soldiers were killed. Innocent people in Iraq were killed. Billions of dollars were wasted, and even journalists that went over to Iraq were killed, and all of that is on his hands.
Regime that has something to hide from the civilized world. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Like, you notice how Bush just comes up with all of these. What's the word that I'm looking for? He's coming up with the elaborate um, plan, and he's trying to put the plan in motion to try to convince uh, the very people in Congress and within the Senate that this man, Saddam Hussein, has to be hunted down, and we have to invade the country. And it's not just him, all right? You're going to see a multitude of players within his cabinet that also made up the big lie in order to do something that was unjust and unwarranted.
But no terrorist state poses a greater or more immediate threat to
Here's Donald Rumsfeld. It's February of 2002.
the security of our people.
This is the Secretary of Defense. So this was a guy that was that was in charge of the Pentagon.
And the stability of the world than the regime of Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Simply stated,
The Vice President, Dick Cheney. All right, another big player in the big lie.
is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, now I want you guys to remember this. Okay, Dick Cheney stated that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. The National Security Defense.
Information collected by NSA that indicated that he continued his weapons of information collected by
Those scrutinizing Iraq.
1991.
Electronic espionage, the NSA, the National Security Agency, remains empty-handed. William Binney, former technical director at the NSA, was among those scrutinizing Iraq.
There was no information collected by NSA that indicated that he continued his weapons of mass destruction program, or even that he had weapons of mass destruction.
Now keep that in mind. All right, he was the head of the National Security Agency. All right, these are the main people that were spying on Iraq and Saddam Hussein. They stated that there were no records of committing weapons of mass destruction. They have satellites everywhere, and they are monitoring Saddam Hussein's activity. They came up with nothing about Saddam Hussein wanting to start or obtaining weapons of mass destruction. Yet, the Vice President of the United States makes this statement.
WMDs whose
That Saddam Hussein now has
Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
Based on what? Based on what? He said he leaves no doubt that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Based on what? Now, we know that to be a lie, because the very people that are responsible for spying on Saddam Hussein clearly stated that he doesn't have weapons of mass destruction. Yet the vice president sticks with the lie and says that he does because they think he does, and therefore because they think he does, therefore he does. Now we all know that Dick Cheney is full of it. He knows himself that he's lying, but he has to keep up with the lie, as you will see in the further clip.
WMDs whose existence will have to be proven. To help them, the neoconservatives turned to Ahmed Chalabi in 1992 together with other opponents of Saddam Hussein in exile.
Now keep in mind, Ahmed Chalabi was an exile and a sworn enemy of Saddam Hussein. This was a man that the administration used to say that there were weapons of mass destruction. So what they did was they basically got their intel that there were weapons of mass destruction based on an exile, based on someone that was exiled out of the country.
He formed the INC, the Iraqi National Congress.
They formed the INC. So the INC was filled with a bunch of exiles whose main job was to lie on Saddam Hussein, stating that he had weapons of mass destruction. Oh, and by the way, never mind the fact that they actually had to look into whether their claims were true or not. No, their excuse would be, well, they're exiles.
All of them had a common interest in being ex-exiles, in that they wanted to take over the government. And
That's what the main plan was. All right. Their main interest was they wanted Saddam out so that they can take over. That was their main interest the entire time. And that's the reason why they had to go along with the big lie. See, they knew themselves that Saddam had no weapons of mass destruction. But keep in mind, everyone had a part in the big lie. And they were a big part of that. And they were a big part of the administration's big lie into invading Iraq. I mean, I can pay 5 random females to say that that a particular guy that I may have a conflict with raped these women. I can have all of these women. I can pay all these women to say, "Hey, listen, okay, I need you to say that this man raped you." I can come up with a big lie like that, and because these women will all lie and lie in synchrony, I can easily get another man convicted first through the court of public opinion, and then eventually through the courts, because according to the courts, when a woman says that a man raped them, immediately they are guilty until proven innocent. It's amazing that this administration that are whose constituents picked in order to um, uphold the Constitution of the people, uphold the Constitution of the United States, that were put in place to protect the very interests of the American people, will come up with a reason to do the complete opposite.
understood that the way they were going to do that was by following a U.S. Army which was dispensing with the current government and with Saddam Hussein.
Overlooked by Bill Clinton, Chalabi allied himself with the Democratic president's worst enemies.
The INC managed to develop clear and significant strategic relations with people among the neocons and in the Republican Party at large, and with some Democrats.
And it's crazy because you had Democrats and Republicans going along um with the lie. It's unbelievable.
That's also to get support for America to do something about Saddam.
In January 2001, luck finally smiled on the Iraqi exiles.
So when President Bush came to power, all those people who were advocating, supporting us, came to power with him.
You know, it's incredible that the government can just do whatever they want when they want to do it, however they want to do it. And then they make this illusion that it will be within the best interest of the people, of the American people that put them in power. This is scary. This is very, very, very scary. Thank you guys for the ones that are joining the live stream. I thank you guys very much. Just to keep you guys up to s- up to date as far as what's happening. Um, tonight's topic is about how we the people have lost faith in the government, and I made an example of how the Bush administration lied to the American people to invade a country that they had no business invading in the first place. And by doing so, they wind up creating new problems um, while not being able to resolve any solutions doing so. All because they believe that they are the US and that they can do whatever they want whenever they want to do it. I know this sounds pretty I know this sounds monotonous, but this is the truth. This is the very truth. And they had players in line just like any other um just like any other organization that's involved in crime in order to be able to carry out the very crime at hand. In this case, the crime at hand was deceiving the American people. And this was done by the very entity that is supposed to protect your freedoms. Incredible.
After 9/11, the collusion between Iraqi exiles and neoconservatives becomes cooperation.
The American administration, so they specifically asked us to see if we can introduce them to people who can provide information on WMDs.
Wow. Wow. Basically, um, the INC was filled with people that were willing to lie in order for this administration to get their way in invading Iraq. Come up with the gift of gab so that we can then convince a Congress make no mistake. I mean, this administration wanted to do I mean they wanted to um go about invading the country in the right way. They didn't want to just go ahead and just do it. They wanted to do it the right way, but they had to do it in a deceiving way so that they can be able to sell the deceit upon the executive chambers, and then they'll be able to then use we the people's money into doing something that was very sinister.
Chalabi complies enthusiastically. He introduces the
He he um he is enthusiastic in participating in the lie.
Americans to Iraqi defectors. Endless sources of revelations about Saddam
Iraqi defectors, people that were big critics of Saddam Hussein, these were the very people who would come together and come up with a bogus reason as to why the U.S. should invade Iraq. Amazing. All right. Amazing. And keep in mind, these people were paid to do this on the taxpayer's dime. I want you to keep that in mind as well.
Hussein's deadly arsenal.
The people in Chalabi's group wanted to get rid of Saddam, so they were looking and searching and trying to come up with things that would help justify to us what our people wanted to hear. That is, we wanted to hear something about weapons of mass destruction so we could justify us going to war with them.
A talented manipulator, Chalabi also introduces his defectors to the press, and through their provocative headlines, the journalists lend credibility to all the allegations against Baghdad. This brainwashing machine divides Washington.
Now, keep in mind, he took this to the press. Look at the press. I mean, look at the very look at the mainstream that were able to carry out the big lie. The New York Times. Go figure. Go figure that the New York Times would carry out this big lie. Go figure.
It was clear that from the very beginning that major institutions in the United States, such as the CIA and a large part of the State Department, were opposed to this. They had no confidence in us.
Of course, they had no confidence because everything was going on based on hearsay. You guys had the gift of gab. You guys were making assumptions with no valid proof. Nothing. Just well, Saddam was a nasty dictator. He killed millions of people. Therefore, he has weapons of mass destruction. Because if he could just kill people for no reason, he definitely has weapons of mass destruction. He's a nasty person. He is the devil. I'm just thinking that's what they had to say. It's not like they had a smoking gun proving that he had any weapons of mass destruction.
They kept criticizing us. They kept calling us exaggerators, liars.
Despite everything, the Pentagon refuses to question the revelations made by the exiles.
Exactly. And I wonder why. Gee, I wonder why. So you knew they were lying. You knew they were full of it, yet you didn't call them out on it. Gee, I wonder why. One has to wonder.
The idea that Chalabi had information that he knew to be false and he presented it knowing it to be false has never been established in any of the inquiries, and there have been many official inquiries.
Just because they didn't bring it up doesn't necessarily mean that what they were saying was true. You knew that because you were the one that actually advised George Bush to say, we're going to go after anyone that we deem to be a terrorist, even though you had no proof that these very terrorists had anything to do with the main reason why the U.S. um, wanted to establish the war on terror in the first place, which was capturing and bringing the people who were responsible for the September 11th attacks. That should have been the main that should have been the main focal purpose of their war on terrorism. But their war on terrorism was towards anyone that they deemed to be a terrorist. Anyone. Anyone. Even if you weren't. Anyone. And by the way, let me just say, when George Bush meant anyone, he basically meant any Islamic country that had a history of making hatred remarks towards the United States. That's what he really meant. All right? Iraq and all of the surrounding countries, Syria, Jordan, those countries that they deem harbored terroristic networks. That's who we was really talking to. All right, Islamic terrorists.
into the activities, the intelligence activities before the war.
But the skeptics must be countered. And to give credence to the Iraqi exiles, the hawks at the Pentagon create a parallel service, the Office of Special Plans, an initiative by Paul Wolfowitz and Douglas Feith.
Paul Wolowitz and Nicholas Feith, another pair of people that were a part of the big lie. The big lie, because they came up with their own CIA group that were going to do the checks and balances on providing the proof that the U.S. needed to invade Iraq. Another part of the big lie.
The Office of Special Plans. Well, this was
Called the Office of Special Plans. The Office of Special Plans. Just another made up entity that they just came up with to supersede their agenda in wanting to invade Iraq.
quite a monstrosity. They were set up as an alternative CIA.
The CIA gathers its information from a multitude of sources. In general, its analysts check them before submitting their conclusions to the politicians. But the Office of Special Plans short-circuits this process, a first in the history. Check them before submitting their conclusions.
Amazing. That is amazing. And of course this needs to be done, because how else are you going to be able to pull off the big lie if it's not done by a bunch of liars? You need liars to pull off the big lie. Now, normally what the way that they would use intelligence that they feel were that are validated to prove terrorism and to prove a counterattack to terrorism would be that that they will grab intelligence from all of the intelligence bureaus, the CIA, the FBI, the National Intelligence Agency, the INR, and looks like the national security. Yeah, national security something. There, but these are the five entities. These are the five intelligence entities that will come up with their intelligence reports, and then it will go through an intelligence analysis, and then and then from there, they will then the intelligence analysis will then bring the findings to Congress. But that will be the right way to do it. And if they did it the right way, then the whole idea of invading Iraq based on the intelligence that he had weapons of mass destruction would cease, because they wouldn't be able to come up with any belief that he had weapons of mass destruction. So instead, they had to create a group out of thin air, right? Which were part of the administration's lying group, right? He had to put these two people that were a part of the administration's big lie in charge, so that they can just come up with a belief that they have weapons of mass destruction based on statements from exiles and detractors, because that makes a lot of sense. Okay? The only people that will be able to carry out the big lie are liars within the organization of the big lie. Amazing.
To the politicians. But the Office of Special Plans short-circuits this process, a first in the history of American.
Of course. Just give it to the liars, and the liars will come up with something. Up. Yep. Okay. Well. Listen. Uh, there is. I know he doesn't have it, but he may have it, and because of that, we have to go and get him. All right. We have to go and get him. So the Office of Special Plans, which is a made-up entity, then comes up and says, "This man has weapons of mass destruction. We need to get this man."
Intelligence. In the end, Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld obtain the answers they need. George Tenet, director of the CIA, grudgingly supports the information before Congress.
That is amazing. Incredible that these people can come together and just lie, and there are no checks and balances, no oversight on the lie. The only oversight would have to be through the executive branch. But then you have to have the right executive branch to make sure that the lie is supported. All right. Now, as you will see on the next clip, some of the people that were in the executive branch questioned the idea of wanting to go to war based on the intel that they had. Here we go.
Hearings, the director of the CIA, George Tenet, brought with him three white.
You know what? That might have been the wrong one. Give me 1 second. Let's check this one out. See this is it.
Blair comes to the aid of his friend Bush and publishes a dossier, in quotation marks, on the Iraqi weapons.
The intelligence picture they paint is one accumulated.
They can be deployed within 45 minutes, and Iraq is seeking uranium from Africa to develop an atomic bomb.
So keep in mind, when George Bush made his statement about, I believe it was yeah. So when George Bush made his statement about him wanting to eradicate all terrorists or all terrorists that he deemed terrorists around the world, Tony Blair was his biggest ally, and he wanted to join the war. You see, he wanted to join it so much that he also came up with a lie himself. He stated that he had a dossier that said that Saddam Hussein was looking to manufacture weapons of mass destruction, and that he had uranium that he received from Uganda. Let's play it again.
And Bush, and publishes. Blair comes to the aid of his friend Bush and publishes a dossier, in quotation marks, on the Iraqi weapons.
The intelligence picture they paint is one accumulated.
They can be deployed within 45 minutes, and Iraq is seeking uranium from Africa to develop an atomic bomb.
Oh. So Tony Blair states that Iraq already had weapons of mass destruction, and that they received uranium from Uganda to create an atomic bomb. Hear it one more time.
Blair comes to the aid of his friend Bush and publishes a dossier, in quotation marks, on the Iraqi weapons.
The intelligence picture they paint is one accumulated.
They can be deployed within 45 minutes, and Iraq is seeking uranium from Africa to develop an atomic bomb.
I'm sorry. He was seeking uranium from Africa, not Uganda. but Uganda's in Africa, so he was seeking uranium from Africa. Now, keep in mind, he's talking about Africa as if it's a country. Africa is a continent, and there are many, many, many countries in Africa. But yet, Tony Blair couldn't pick one single country from Africa that Iraq was looking to obtain uranium from. Uh-oh. So again, a part again playing into the big lie. Playing into the big lie. All right. Tony Blair came up with a dossier. So what? Someone just told him that that Iraq was doing this. Of course, Tony Blair knows that this is a lie, but he wants to do it because he has an interest in wanting to invade Iraq as well.
But in Congress, Graham is not convinced. He presses on. He wants proof.
The agency, particularly the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was very reluctant and said, we don't have time to do this. I said, we don't have time to know everything we need to know before we commit U.S. troops to combat.
So Tennant goes back to the White House.
Let's play that again.
Reluctant and said, particularly the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was very reluctant and said, we don't have time to do this. I said, we don't.
He wants proof.
The agency, particularly the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was very reluctant and said, we don't have time to do this. I said, we don't have time to know everything we need to know before we commit U.S. troops to combat.
So Tennant goes back to the White House and he says, looks like the jig is up.
Oh, you know
we're
what?
gonna have to do an estimate.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, guys. I kind of may have played that one early. So maybe, okay. We'll go into this one.
Folders were materials about those hearings. The director of the CIA, George Tenet, brought with him 3 white folders were materials about the some 550 sites in Iraq where allegedly there were weapons of mass destruction. I asked Tenet, where did we get all this information? And the answer is, we got it from the exiles. Who did we, the United States of America, have on the ground to see if in fact what was said in these exile-provided information packets was accurate? And the answer was 0.
0. Basically, no proof. Okay, this is coming from the CIA. The CIA based his belief on wanting to invade Iraq on the detractors and exiles of Iraq, the very people who were big critics and sworn enemies of Saddam Hussein. Yeah, well, they said that they have weapons of mass destruction, so therefore they have it. And the senator was saying, okay, well, who was there to prove this? And he said 0. No one could actually prove what they said. But hey, he's the CIA director, so you have to take what he says into face value. Yeah, he was one of the senators that actually voted against the war in Iraq because he said it was going to cause more problems than ever. Yes, he actually was doing what was best for the American people. All right. Now, here's the other clip that leads into.
And the White House says, "Okay, Mr. Tenet,
to the aid of his friend Bush and publishes a dossier, in quotation marks, on the Iraqi
The
weapons.
intelligence picture they paint is one accumulated.
They can be deployed within 45 minutes, and Iraq is seeking uranium from Africa to develop an atomic bomb. But in Congress, Graham is not convinced. He presses on. He wants proof.
The agency, particularly the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was very reluctant and said, "We don't have time to do this." I said,
Well, of course he doesn't have time to do it because he's not going to come up with anything. Of course he doesn't have time to do this because he's going to come up with a big fat nothing burger if he were to actually go in and do this. All right, he knew that, and the CIA director George Tenet wanted to just go along with the president's wish. And the senator was talking to him as if he said, "Well, listen, we have to remind you that you can't go to war with Iraq until we give you the green light to do so. So unless you have proof that you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that we need to go into Iraq, we're not going to spend tax dollars and soldiers' lives and the innocent lives of other Iraqis into engaging in something that can be catastrophic to the people in Iraq and to the very people that are supposed to carry out this mission of invading Iraq." But unfortunately, and so this happened.
"We don't have time to know everything we need to know before we commit U.S. troops to combat."
So Tenet goes back to the White House and he says, "Looks like the jig is up. We're going to have to do an estimate." And the White House says, "Okay, Mr. Tenet, two things. Number one, you have to do it in 1.5 weeks. Usually an estimate takes 3 or 4 months. And number two, it's got to come out exactly as Vice President Dick Cheney said it was."
Tenet will once again yield to
Unbelievable. So now he is going to be on the hook for coming up with something out of thin air so that they can do this, because we all know that this man doesn't have any proof to give this administration a reason to want to give the order to invade Iraq. Nothing. Actually, he's going to have to present this to Congress. All right. Let's go.
the president's orders. Bob Kerrey, senator, former Navy SEAL, was at the heart of the intelligence world.
Well, look, I think it's a fair accusation to say that both President Bush and Vice President Cheney put pressure on the intelligence community to reach a conclusion that they had already reached.
Vice President Cheney at one time went down and sat in CIA, sat down in a chair next to the analyst looking at the data saying, what do you have on weapons of mass destruction? Well, that kind of puts...
What do you have on weapons of mass destruction? Yes, you're going to help us execute our agenda. You're going to do this. You're going to do this now.
The pressure on the intelligence agency to come up
with something, because we are going to invade Iraq. All right, just give these idiots something. Come up with something.
With some things.
In early October 2002, in the U.S. Congress, a resolution authorizing the war is put to the vote. The CIA finally presents its estimate on Iraq. Classified as top secret, it is not until 2000.
And of course, you know, as our government goes, any government official or any intelligence agent can come up with something out of thin air and then make it and then classify it so that nothing can come out until years later when they've already have completed the task and the damage is already set.
2015 that the estimate is made available to the public. It's an austere text, 95 pages long, that dissects Saddam
95
Hussein's
pages.
weapons of mass destruction program.
Ooh, what does that say? INR is unable to predict when Iraq could acquire a nuclear device or weapon. Now, you would think that based on that, that they wouldn't have the okay to invade. They have nothing. There's nothing here. Absolutely nothing. Listen to this.
Most notably, however, the estimate is exceedingly cautious, citing doubts and conflicting opinions coming from the core of the intelligence community. To keep these doubts from being taken into account, the White House simultaneously publishes a shortened version of the estimate on Iraq. 25 pages.
25 pages. And all of it was circumstantial evidence. Just circumstantial. So the thing was, they came up. Let me see if I have something else. I believe I have something else. I'm sorry. They came up with this idea that they had something that they wanted to show the people to prove that they had weapons of mass destruction. It turned out that they didn't. However, um, the reason why they were able to pull it off was because, well, actually, what they did was that they just came up with a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence, and circumstantial is just hearsay, would have, could have, possible, based on Saddam's actions in the past. Yet, no smoking gun. There were no smoking gun that he had weapons of mass destruction. The INR report proved that they had nothing. But because they were able to come up with this bunkers and different locations, illustrated locations in Iraq, that the CIA director was able to paint as locations for mass destruction. Even though you had Senator Graham that was against it, vast majority of the people voted for it. And they were able to vote it on. And in 2003, despite no physical evidence of mass destruction, the United States of America invaded Iraq, and countless people. I mean, it was a war that was spent where $928 billion were spent. Over 180,000 soldiers died. Multiple people, tens of thousands of Iraqis died. And the only thing that they got was Saddam Hussein being captured a year later and then being hanged. All that happened, but guess what didn't happen? No capture of mass destruction, of weapons of mass destruction. Oh, so you spend close to $1 trillion. Hundreds of thousands of people are killed, and that includes soldiers and innocent Iraqis. You capture Saddam Hussein, but yet you don't capture weapons of mass destruction. Wasn't that the whole purpose of their mission? But we knew that weapons of mass destruction didn't exist. They were just interested in capturing Saddam and in trying to make Iraq a democracy country. while also collecting the oil as well. That's what they were. That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. Actually, they didn't even collect the oil. The Iran winds up collecting the oil. Amazing, amazing stuff. So all of that, your tax dollars paid for the big lie. They went in and executed the big lie, spending almost $1 trillion to do so. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed. And the only thing that they got out of Iraq was a captured dictator that was hiding out in a bunker a year later. Amazing. But this is how the government can lie to you. All right? And it took an elaborate plan and a group of people to feed into the lie. All right? Notice that, let me play this. I believe it's here. Notice what I played before.
Appears eager to move on to another.
Destruction.
The president has barely massive area from Iraq, and stinging defeat in 19 after decimating his people, Saddam has remained in power. In 1998, he even drove out UN inspectors sent to disarm him. For the neoconservatives, he is the devil.
Saddam was a dangerous man. Dangerous first to his own citizens and dangerous to the rest of the world.
I believe it's there.
This is no surprise. Saddam Hussein's arsenal had been destroyed after the Gulf War.
Keep in mind, all right? Remember, his weapons of mass destruction went up in smoke. This man had no weapons of mass destruction and haven't had any since 1991. Because the NSA was able to confirm that he had no weapons of mass destruction. Yet you had a regime that went out and said this. Oh, let me take that off. Yet you had a regime that went out.
Regime
said
that has
this.
something to hide from the civilized world. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
But no terrorist state poses a greater or more immediate threat to the security of our people and the stability of the world than the regime of Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
His weapons of mass destruction were destroyed after the Gulf War, which was in the early 90s. However, Dick Cheney, the vice president, wants to convince the American people that he has weapons of mass destruction, even though what weapons of mass destruction he had was destroyed more than a decade ago.
WMDs whose existence will have to be proven. To help them, the neoconservatives turned to Ahmed Chalabi in 1992 together with other opponents of Saddam Hussein in exile. He formed the INC, the Iraqi National Congress.
All of them had a common interest in being ex-exiles, in that they wanted to take over the government and understood that the way they were going to do that.
To the press, and through their provocative headlines, the
We will make no distinction.
The president says he should.
policies of Bush's predecessor.
The organization
Group to which Richard Pearl belongs, the neoconservatives. Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld,
That's not it either. Oh my goodness. I thought I had it. Well, let's see. This might be it.
journalists lend credibility to all. But the Office of Special Plans short-circuits this process, a first in the history of American intelligence. In the end, Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld obtain the answers they need. George Tenet, director of the CIA, grudgingly supports the information before Congress.
Amazing. That is amazing. That is amazing stuff. Um, but this is the proof that the government can lie to you. The clip that I was looking for was Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell saying earlier, prior to the attacks, that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. I mean, they said it out of their very own mouths. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. I know it's here. That's why I like to have things in order. Let's see. I know it's around here.
WMDs, weapons of mass.
This may not be it. I don't think this is it. No. It's okay. We'll find it. Work it as we fly it. Oh, shout out. Thank you, KBM. It was dubbed the 90-day war. I'm telling you. Amazing. Yeah, it's just it's amazing how, you know, how they can how they can just come up with the lie. I mean, just a blatant lie, and unfortunately have the people believe in engaging in a war just to engage in it. I mean, this is something that we would expect the Democrats to do, but this was a Republican president with a Republican candidate. I mean, with a Republican cabinet that engaged in this, and it's unbelievable that they would just go along with this. This much.
Well, law. We're going to kick
Center, the officials. The
It took the neoconservatives only 48 hours to prevail, change the regime in Baghdad, subjugate Iraq, a simpler objective than that of destroying the nebulous terrorist.
Sorry, guys. Okay, thought I had it, but that's what I have right now. Now we're going to switch over to um the other reason why people have lost faith in the government, because the government is willing to use anything that they can to get people to comply, even if it's under a lie, just like the China virus. A lot of people thought that the China virus was the second coming to the bubonic plague, and that the government wanted you to convince you that you needed to take the vaccine, even if there were alternative ways of taking. I mean, even though there was alternative ways of therapy, but keep in mind the government had a contract with Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson and Johnson. So clearly, they are paying them to come up with the vaccine, and of course, money talks and BS walks. But in this case, money and BS, not only were the money talking, but the BS was also talking at the same time, because the government continued to push the idea of getting the vaccine, even though there were over 1,000 side effects to the vaccine. But God forbid if you were to ever put that type of information on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, you would immediately become canceled. All right. This is where cancel culture came from. Canceling people that they deem whose speech that they deem unacceptable. Now, we live in the United States of America. We live in a country that should be in which speech should be protected, whether you agree with it or not. Their argument was, well, Facebook is a private entity. It's not a public sector. So they can cancel and censor whoever they want to. Keep in mind, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, they were all promoting the China virus vaccine, but yet they refuse to yet they refuse to promote alternative therapies. Alternative therapies such as um, natural immunity, meaning that a person with a well intact immune system can just get the virus and be able to survive it, considering the fact that the virus has a 95% survival rate for a person with a well intact immune system. Oh no, guys like Dr. Fauci, no, you can't promote that. Absolutely not, because it doesn't make money. So if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Why would they promote something that actually works? Why? Makes no sense at all. For the people that are joining the live stream, I thank you very much for joining. You could be anywhere in this world. You could be anywhere. You can be anywhere in the world, and you chose to be with me. So I appreciate that. If you can, you can. If you're coming in, do me the biggest favor and hit the like button if you're tuning into the show. Leave a comment during and after the show. And if you like, you can also join the show as well. So I'm leaving that out there for anyone that wants to join the show. So going back to what I was saying about the China virus vaccine, that it was just a big nothing burger. They wanted to make it look as if it was the second bubonic. It was the second to the bubonic plague. They wanted to come up with all these reasons why to take it. Um, they were stating that at the time, what, 500,000 people died from the China virus. That doesn't even make up a 1% of the total population of the American people. Joe Biden made it his battle cry during his campaign, especially during the debate where he came up and he said, "Well, how many people?" Oh, here goes my guy right here. KBM, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, I can.
Great, great, great. I didn't have to put on my phone headphones for this, thank goodness. Yeah, I'm KBM stands for Kenyan by marriage, so I'm married to a Kenyan. So
Okay.
if you didn't know that,
Okay.
and I made sure, no matter what the media said in Kenya, that because she's out there,
Okay.
she shall not take the shot, the jab. I made sure of that.
Very good.
Basically, there's things already going on in Kenya anyway. We've had in the past from pharmaceutical companies from America and other European countries either donate or they're paid through some type of program to send basically, where women, it's up to 5 years. You get a shot, you don't get pregnant for 5 years. Come to find out, there are some Kenyan doctors that investigated the serum and found other things, other agents within that agent that were doing other things that, for one, making women infertile for a lot longer than 5 years. And two, some other side effects that were cancerous. Don't remember what they are, but if you ever want to research it, you can definitely research it. It has to do with trying to make the women infertile.
Okay.
Okay, so you're talking a population of a country about 54 million people, and this affected, well, as far as the estimates are, about half the female population of age took that injection. Okay, it didn't work on everybody, but it worked on a lot of people that weren't having babies for quite a while. Now, to fast forward to C19, because of that past of what happened in Kenya, I was like, this is what's happening. Even if the drugs are up to date, you got to remember in the past that a lot of drugs into Kenya and other places of Africa have also been given as expired drugs that are no longer viable on the date on the bottle, injection or otherwise. So, but you know, in a lot of cases, that's not the case, but in a lot of other cases, it is. So with the history of donated or paid for serums, I'm just going to call them, coming into the countries, they have been tainted. They have been expired. They've hurt a lot of people. And so it's like, for the ones that are good, it's not like, now, how do I trust if this is good? And it might be a good product that you need for something like, you know, tackling malaria. Now, there hasn't been, as far as I know, any malaria medicines that have hurt people, because malaria medicine in Africa has been around for a very long time.
Okay.
But again, back to C19, I made sure that because of this is what's going on in the United States. People are not dropping like flies all over the place. I haven't seen it.
Absolutely not.
Nobody in New York saw it.
Right. And the thing about it, you know, and the thing about it was that you would expect that the CD that the director of the CDC and also Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up.
You know that who was, you know, who's also the head of the what is it, the NI, let's say well he you know, he was the person that was, you know, that was in charge of the infection control and actually in charge of um of of people learning about the infection, that you would think that they would have brought these type of side effects to, you know, to light, because people need to understand what these vaccines are, you know, and the benefits and the side effects to it. But you know, but the simple fact that he was pushing that and not pushing natural immunity, I think for the average person who understands how viruses work and how the immune system works, because the vaccine, what it really, it's not as if it's medication. It's supposed to be something. It's supposed to be a barrier to help the develop antibodies um, for your immune system, so that when you come across the vaccine, I mean, when you come across the virus, then you'll be able to be protected by it. Um, and the simple fact that he was trying to bring up a vaccine for, I mean, the fact that he was trying to get people to try to take the vaccine for a virus that had a 95% survival rate if you were to actually get it, and um, and go through it and actually be able to develop better um, protection from your immune system if you get it naturally, as opposed to getting it from the vaccine, seem kind of fishy. What is your take on that?
Well, I have to compare it with influenza.
Hmm.
You know, it's like when C19 came out, all of a sudden influenza and everything else was no longer an issue, which was just quite convenient. And there was a lot of conflicting reports on, okay, for the people who are doing studies, and that before CDC got caught for the lies about the numbers being inflated on who's actually dying. There was other reports, and you really couldn't tell who was right or who was wrong, that influenza was still killing more people than C-19 was. So influenza is I haven't taken an influenza shot in probably 30 years.
Wow.
Right? I don't
Wow.
need it. My
Yeah.
body, and I've had it a couple times, and I don't need it. I had C-19 last year twice. I had it first in like February, and I think October was the last time. The first time it lasted about 9 days. The second time it lasted about 7 days. And even the first time, it felt like a really bad common cold, but it didn't feel like the description that a lot of people were describing. I got a few little chills on the very first day, but I've had chills on a common cold.
Absolutely.
Right, where I needed to layer up, just because I felt like the heater wasn't backing me up as far as heating up my body. But no, I got rid of it just fine. Now, I had influenza for the first time in many years. I think it was 2017,
Okay.
and I ended up getting pneumonia as well. And the pneumonia was the problem part. The pneumonia, I didn't go to the doctor. What I did is I took 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C within an hour and a half. And within 4 hours, my pneumonia was 100% gone. And I allowed myself to suffer with the pneumonia for about a week. I didn't check in with anybody. People were around me, so I knew it was contagious, but at the same time, I wasn't being selfish. I was just actually not wanting to go to the doctor, and I didn't have any insurance. I didn't want to put a bill on me. So I wasn't going to work either. So I went to the drugstore down the street, bought me some vitamin C, brought it back, and I was good in 4 hours. And that's based off of, vitamin C is something that the body doesn't produce. Like the body can produce certain types of vitamins. Vitamin C is not one of them.
Okay.
And if you don't take vitamin C, you can die. But see, what the thing was is that, and this wasn't even organic vitamin C. This was man-made vitamin C, basically a little bit of sulfuric acid,
Okay.
and stuff like that. But it still cured me. I had a situation where I went to Alaska not too long after that. No, it was before that, where we had 1,000 employees. It was at one of those fishing processing plants. Over half the people there caught influenza. So to keep me from catching influenza, what I did is I took a bunch of vitamin C. I was one of a few people because I didn't want to get sent home. I needed the job, needed the money. If you didn't come down with influenza, you weren't going home. So yeah, so if you get sick at one of those places, I would want somebody to be sent home because I don't want them coughing on the fish, and then the fishes get frozen, it's packed up, and it's being put out on the market in Safeway or somewhere. But the thing is, kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent. The reason why I'm bringing this stuff up, because there's a lady, you might have remembered her back in 2018, I believe, and definitely in 2019. Now she's from Africa, and her name is Stella Emanuel, I think.
Yes. I remember. Yes.
She got kicked off of YouTube, so now she's on Rumble. So I'm definitely subscribed to her.
Okay.
And she was promoting what is used for malaria to treat her C-19 patients with almost 100% success. And they called her crazy, saying she's some crazy Nigerian lady, where she's actually from Cameroon. She went to medical school in Nigeria, and then later further her medical studies in America when she came here.
Right.
And
they tried to
they tried to blackball her.
You are right.
On her information.
Absolutely. Yeah, they try to blackball her. They try to make her look as if she was spreading disinformation,
right,
and everything else. And anyone that wasn't promoting the China virus vaccine basically was promoting this disinformation. You're absolutely right. But yes, continue.
Right, and when she made that one press conference, I think it was in Washington D.C., she was surrounded by a lot of her colleagues from different parts of the U.S., and they were all American. From what I remember, watching on TV, they were all American, had the same information as her. They all subscribed the same malaria type medicine that she took as a kid growing up on Sundays, right? Just to keep from getting it, because you can either take it to keep from getting it, or you take it to get rid of it. And basically, it comes from a tree bark in South America. I forget what it's called, quarantine or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say that too. I think it was hydro. I
It's
want to.
it's that some manufacturers put it in some of their drinks, like alcohol drinks. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the British back in the day, during colonialism, they weren't dying in Africa because they were drinking a beer that had that in it. So they weren't dropping like flies like they probably would have if they weren't drinking that beer that had it in it. Because malaria is no joke. It's something that you don't want to catch, and it makes C19 look like a cakewalk in the park.
Mm.
So, but what I'm saying is that she had other colleagues around her that all had the same information, and basically, she was the one, because she was on the microphone, and basically from Africa, they were trying to put a bad light on her because she was totally adamant about this is one thing that does work. We have all the studies. She had everything with the other people around her that have all studied in their own clinics that this is something that actually works. We also had another American Chinese doctor who's originally from China, I think, but he was in China during the epidemic when it first came out, and he is a promoter of vitamin C. And so what the Chinese government allowed him to do while he was out there is not only take control of what was going on over there, but also they allowed him to go ahead and test vitamin C on patients, because vitamin C is not going to kill you. And he had a very high success rate. And these were high doses of vitamin C, not low doses.
Okay.
Because the body to survive needs a minimum really of 200 milligrams of vitamin C per day to survive.
Amazing.
But 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 is not unheard of, and it's not a bad thing for the body. The only thing that a lot of vitamin C could do, especially if it's the synthetic, not the natural one, is that it could cause ulcers in your stomach. And the reason being is because there's things like sulfuric acid mixed in and stuff like that.
Okay.
If you get the natural stuff, this stuff is not going to happen to you. Okay.
See, and that's, and I find it, well, I don't find it ironic. One of the reasons why um this wasn't promoted, mainly because it doesn't pay to promote it. Obviously, Dr. Fauci was paid off by Big Pharma.
Right.
Big Pharma was his biggest customer, and so despite the fact that he took the oath to do what was best for the patients, I'm sure he doesn't practice anymore. But even as a doctor that's giving advice, you want to look out for the best interest of your patients. And the simple fact that he wouldn't even come out with other alternatives as opposed of the vaccine to treat to treat the China virus shows you that he was paid off by Big Pharma. Not to mention, this is the same guy that said that when the virus came out initially, you need to put on a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had to put on two masks.
Mm-hmm.
Then then two masks, and then put on a mask and the N95 or to cover your face. I mean, he was literally all over the place. But I don't know if you noticed this, but I don't know if you heard about this, but that Moderna paid $400 million to to Fauci to um to get the licensing for the spike protein for the China virus vaccine. So if you really want to know the true reason why he was pushing the vaccine, obviously it was uh, money. I mean, obviously it was money motivated. But this is what the government will do, you know, and this is more of the reason why anything that really comes out of the government's mouth, if you're not willing to look into it and do your own research, that they can definitely take you in for a whirlwind, and your tax dollars will wind up paying for the very mistakes that they're willing to bring to you and to your family.
Right, exactly. I mean, I didn't catch the beginning, but when you're kind of covering the reason after 9/11, why America went over, even with the Gulf War, it was all about oil. It was all a setup in, the big number which starts with a nine. I don't want to say it here.
Okay.
Um, it was all a setup. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, there's too many people who are silenced, who were actually either silenced and say, I'm not speaking about this no more,
Mhm.
and a lot of people just ended up missing, have never been seen again. And
Wow.
these were a lot of engineers, building engineers, that said there's no way a plane can go into a building like that the way it was built and make it collapse. I don't know if you knew, but 7 days prior to that day, both buildings were like had maintenance done on them from top floor to bottom.
Hmm.
And this is where they think the crews went in and put in the sticks of dynamite on all the floors, which took about 8 hours. So they did it on a night shift,
Wow.
a week prior to this all happening. Um, but the thing is that building engineers know what they're talking about, and they went through such great lengths to shut them people up that and even the cameras that were like in the entrance of like the Pentagon,
Mhm.
where those little things where you put your card and the thing goes up so your car can go through.
Right.
There's cameras on that from the front and cameras on the side, and it shows the missile going into that. Right?
Wow.
It shows a missile going into that. The way they try to claim that a plane went into that, as we know, there was no plane wreckage of any kind, and there's no way a plane could go that deep, because a lot of the missiles that are made, and I think the Tomahawk was the main one, they're designed, whether if they're going in a building or in the ground, to first burrow in the building to a certain depth, or and then or to the ground, burrow to a certain depth in the ground, then they explode. Where most bombs are made to explode on impact. These first take like a second or two to do their intrusion to the ground or the building, then explode from the inside
Okay.
instead of the outside. So this was the type of bomb that went into, or missile that went into the Pentagon.
Amazing. I, 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 I've always wondered why they would want to keep this silent from from people, considering the fact that people have the right of freedom of speech. I mean, why they would want to keep something like this aside unless they were trying to hide something. Now, obviously, I know there are people that are weary of that. They're going to think that it's all conspiracy theories.
Right.
But the one thing that the one thing that people need to keep in mind is that this government has had a history of lying to the American people. What um coming from coming from the Persian Gulf, and then the invasion in Iraq. I don't think that is too far off. Um, and then you even look at at the vaccine. It's they use this. I mean, they weaponize the vaccine. I mean, they use the vaccine to weaponize our freedoms.
Yeah, they weaponize the false information about the vaccine.
Right. 100%, which should have, what I mean, which should have been disclosed. Um, because keep in mind, I mean, it's a vaccine that a lot of people, well, that was made too early, but was stated that people had to use it, and it's something that actually has more detriment. I mean, it has more side effects to it than good. Not to men-
Right.
not to mention too. I've never heard of a vaccine that was similar to the flu, in which you had to go, which you had to take more than one series of it.
Yeah, and the whole thing about influenza is a scam as well because, okay, they offer it for free, which means somebody's already paid for it, which most likely are tax dollars
Right.
at a lot of drugstores, right?
Absolutely.
Or even hospitals. So they're always saying every flu season you should get a shot for influenza every flu season. Why should I get a shot for influenza every flu season when I'm not catching influenza?
100%.
And the effects of C-19 of why people were dying from it are exactly pretty much the same as influenza. It's people with weakened immune systems, heavy smokers, heavy drinkers, people who don't take care of themselves, the elderly. But the elderly that do take care of themselves, they weren't dying from it. But there's a lot of elderly people, especially in America, that simply don't take care of themselves, as well as young people, as we know, and they were the ones dying from it. I never heard of an actual healthy person that wasn't doing something to the body. Like you might have a bodybuilder who smokes a pack of cigars every day. That's not a healthy person.
Absolutely.
He could look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but if he's smoking a pack of cigars every day, he's already compromised his immune system on a daily basis.
I rest my case. But again, this is a part of the big lie.
Hmm.
Um, and just so for the politicians to push this thing out, because obviously there's a monetary incentive for pushing this out. Okay,
Right.
I mean, you look at the China virus on its own. Just they had they had just 1 million people dying from the virus. Again, that's what less than, again, it's less than 1% of the population. Yet the great white dope Joe Biden made people believe that look, you got to take the virus. I mean, you got to take the vaccine. How many people died? How many people that died from the vaccine? Okay, I could tell you right now, if you have only 1 million people that 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 died, I mean, that died from it, and of course they could have died from other comorbidities, but that's something that they will never bring up. But but hypothetically, let's say that they really died from from uh from from the vaccine. It's still less than 1% of the entire population.
Right.
Okay, meaning meaning that more than likely, not saying that you can't catch the vaccine, but I mean, you can't catch the virus, but if you get it, but if you get it with a well intact immune system, you will be completely fine. Then this is also coming from the president, who wind up getting the China virus. Then he went and took an oral vaccine for it, and then wind up getting the China virus again. Not necessarily. No, I mean, and more likely he got it from the oral antiviral that he took to prevent him from getting the China virus.
Yeah, see, I didn't take the vaccine. I did the first time. I only took one pill, and it was from Pfizer,
Right.
and I forgot what they called it.
I think
Um,
is it Paxlovid?
I don't remember, but it was just one
Okay.
pill, and but I was like, I didn't even really need to take that. So, but I took it just see if there's any, like, any issues or anything like that, to see if it was going to improve anything. It didn't improve anything. To me, it was just a placebo of nothing. I mean,
Absolutely.
it did nothing. But I was not going to take the vaccine. I was prepared to look for another job, because where I work, it's most of the work we do is for the government.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, wow. And the government was really trying to cracked down on people taking the vaccine. If you worked, if you had a government position, if you were a healthcare worker, I mean, 2021 was just a year of um of people going wild based on propaganda. And I remember Joe
Right.
Biden at the time was upset because
Yeah, because they
um
weren't taking the virus.
right. They weren't taking, like,
And
he wanted half of the population vaccinated. It wasn't happening. So what Joe Biden did, even though he stated he would never do it, was that he was going to mandate that people take the vaccine.
right,
Now there's no constitution that says that gives any government official the right to want to mandate anyone to take a vaccine.
right,
But Joe Biden was adamant. He wanted the people. I mean, he wanted people to take this vaccine no matter what, even if it didn't benefit them. And he was enforcing that upon the employers. He basically was saying any business that has 100 employees or more need to mandate that they take the China virus vaccine.
right, right. And I was getting ready, like, if it came to being that serious and I couldn't even get a job, I was ready to, like, okay, well, I'm not gonna wait to pay off my school loan and all that. I'm heading right to Kenya and join my wife.
Wow. Yeah.
And struggle over there to make a living. But the thing is that I meant to say to take the virus, not to take the. I mean the vaccine,
The vaccine.
and not the
I
virus.
understand.
Yeah, it was to a point where, see, my job is private. It's private industry, but like I said, most of the contracts are for the government. And, we also have contracts for, like, Boeing Air and other private companies. Even Google had some stuff made there.
Mhm.
So it's tech. But the thing is that I started seeing pamphlets on the pin board. This is coming up. This is a new mandate. We are going to have to do this, or we might have to do this, depending on how many people come down with it. I think it was like if 70% of the population in the workplace that I worked at, we had to wear a mask. If it was below that, we didn't have to at a certain point after the mandate lifted. And it was just getting kind of crazy. When it came to the mandate of the mask, because it wasn't enough, we were actually manufacturing our own mask in a plant made for tech, until we can get some manufactured out of China, because we actually have facilities in China for this manufacturing company I work with.
Wow.
But it's an American-owned company. So once they got the Chinese product coming into America for our company only, we stopped making the mask. But we actually set it up and everything to where we're making the mask. But yeah, it was stressful for the fact that it was a bunch of nothing. I don't mind people wearing masks. I mean, the thing is, it's not going to prevent you from catching it, but
Absolutely
it
not.
can actually slow down from somebody else getting it from you if you got it. And that's the thing. If Officer Tatum said it best, man, if you fart and you can smell it with a mask on, you're going to get the virus, right? So I mean, there's so much truth into that. I mean, has Tatum ever lied? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, but yeah, but it's it's not 100%. But I don't mind people wearing it, because actually those masks were not designed for that. I mean, those masks were designed for splatter, and they were designed for, like, pollution. So like in China, because they have such a high industrial market there, manufacturing, that some of their cities haven't seen the sun for decades.
Right.
And people wear masks just to simply slow down from breathing in the pollution, which is extremely harmful in an environment like that. But those people come from China and other places like that. They're used to wearing masks, so they had no problems with it. But I don't see anybody. And sometimes I wear a mask on public transportation because of the smell of the people. And that's the reason why I wear it. It's not because they might be sick or whatever. It's because the public transportation here in Portland, Oregon is horrible. They
W-
let the homeless take over, and
Wow, wait, you're based out of Portland? Oh,
yes,
amazing.
yes,
Amazing. Yes, I know Portland is a mess out there.
very much so.
What the because yeah, mainly yeah, mainly because of that and the fact that they that that they regularized, I mean that they regulated the use of any of I mean of all narcotics including heroin. When I heard that, I said okay, that they clearly are trying to put Oregon in the dump fire.
Yeah, and the thing is, two of our biggest Walmarts in the city closed down not too long
I
ago because
heard.
of theft. And the I don't know if it's the prosecutor or whatever that's in charge of prosecuting crimes for the city, but Portland, on this report that I watched, is only prosecutes 49% of thefts in the entire city. Where we have two counties, we have Washington County, where Nike is, and then we have Clackamas County, which is on the other side of Portland. And Washington County prosecutes 86% of all their thefts, where they said in Clackamas prosecutes like 89% of all thefts. So it's like people are not just closing down businesses in the city, people are moving out because it's a dump. It's an absolute dump. Now, Portland has always been a dump. Don't let anybody tell you any different. It has always been a dump, but it's
Wow.
gotten absolutely crazy in the last 20 years. Now, there's still a few cities around America that are worse. Like no one's going to beat Los Angeles. I mean, what I see in
Right.
Portland today, and I grew up in Southern California in my teen years, because I'm over 50. Los Angeles was worse. And then you look at Los Angeles today with all the homeless compared to what it had back then, and there was a lot. It's like it totally looks like a third world country down there.
Right, right. I don't know. They have I know that they have Skid Row out there, and obviously Skid Row was created by the local government there because they're incentivized to become homeless.
Actually, the term Skid Row came from the mission in downtown Los Angeles.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of it exactly. It wasn't Salvation Army, but there's one that was created there for the homeless people because you had a lot of people coming through the city that had nowhere to go and stuff like that. And so it was many decades ago, way before I was born, Skid Row was coined out of Los Angeles. And so there's an area of downtown that's just normally called Skid Row. And the same nonprofit that's been there for decades is still there, feeding people and stuff like that. But I remember walking through Skid Row, and I used to be homeless at like 17.
Mhm.
That place is scary. And this was 1987. I remember watching a pregnant woman, and this is during the crack epidemic. I remember watching a pregnant woman climb up one of those old, 2 to 3, story buildings that are brick and have the fire escape on the outside, like you see a lot in New York, right? There's a water pipe that's attached to it from basically the top to the bottom, I guess, for the rain drainage. She actually had on some Converse shoes. She was pregnant and wanted to get in that building to get some crack because the door downstairs was locked. She actually hee-hawed up that pipe with her feet on the bricks, flat, all the way up to the fire
Wow.
escape to crawl through that window to go and get that crack.
And
I,
and, and she did all this while she was pregnant.
she had to be at least 6 months, if not more.
Wow.
And I said that's the craziest thing, even till this day, that I've ever seen.
Wow.
Somebody do to get something just to get high. But yeah, so it's like all these different places. But Portland is an absolute dump. Don't let anybody tell you any different. It's a dump, and even staunch liberals that live in the city are moving out because they can't bear it.
Yeah, well. Hey, if they voted for the very people that that are responsible for this, then they should get what they deserve. They should actually stay there. I don't really want people that are that are staunch, that are um liberals, to then go to red, and then flee to, and what they tend to do, they tend on fleeing to red states, that don't have all of that happening, and try to change, that state into, into a blue state.
Yeah, Oregon used to be a hardcore red state at one time.
At one time, I know.
Yeah.
But
It, it,
well, the same thing with California. I couldn't believe at one time California used to be a red state.
oh yeah, I was alive during that time.
Wow. Yeah,
I was alive.
they said during the presidential election, I think the last Republican candidate to win California was George Bush back in 1988.
Yeah, I was going to say Ronald Reagan, but
Oh,
I forgot about Bush.
yeah, yeah, I
But
forgot about Bush.
Bush was not a good guy. Neither was his son.
Oh,
Um,
rhinos. Did you see? Like the first part of my show was literally was talking about him, and talking about the administration, and just the fact that they were able to just convince Congress to have the U.S. Army just go right into Iraq,
mhm.
and just invade a country based on a lie.
Right.
I mean, what we wind up doing was destabilizing a country even further that was already stabilized, and that was um the country's ability to create a new terrorist network called ISIS.
Right.
We're
And
able. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say during that administration, what was funny is that, and this is coming out of Texas, but what was funny about that is that the Bushes basically only did business with people who they're related to or very high in power. As far as like all the missiles that were made by um, like Cheney. I forget the name of that company he had where they make nothing but weapons for the U.S. government. So our tax dollars really poured into that particular company more than any other to make all the
Wow.
Tomahawk missiles that they had going out there. The Tomahawk was the big missile at the time. And then when it came to the oil, well, that was Bush's family. That was their company that was going out there along with a couple others. It was all Bush related. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to hire a contractor to go out there and extract the oil. No, that was all for them to make them and their friends rich.
That's
And
amazing.
what because Saddam Hussein, before his last days of having power in Iraq, is that he set fire to all the oil wells, right? So to cap them off, that's what they were calling it, capping them off, so they can um, take out the fires that were there and start drilling again. That was our tax dollars that paid for that. It wasn't these privateer companies like the Bushes have and their friends. Then after that was done with our taxpayer dollars, it still took a lot of our taxpayer dollars to get all the equipment over there that was theirs that they should have paid for, but we ended up paying for it, and just to get their oil. Because at that time, when I remember at that time, Iraq was the second biggest oil producer at that time.
Amazing.
Right?
There you go.
So outside of Saudi Arabia. And so therefore that's the only reason when they stopped saying we're going to sell to the United States, we're going to deal with other countries. That was it. That's all you need to do is say no. So just imagine if Nigeria, on the Delta where their oil rigs are. Imagine if they said no to America, because America depends on 15% of all the oil just out of that one location in Nigeria alone. So that's a big percentage, and they have no refineries whatsoever. So all the refinery is being done over here. but all the raw oil is coming from over there and other places. So if they took off 15%, there's one or two things that's going to happen to Nigeria. They're either going to get sanctioned, or America is going to find a way to go to war in Nigeria, because this is
And
what happens when you do this.
and this is something that people need to understand with the U.S. government. I obviously, I love this country because of the freedoms that we have in this country. I always say that America is the
Yeah,
greatest
and the
country in the
idea
world.
of America is actually pretty good.
Is pretty good. The problem is when you have the when you have the wrong people going into into government and control and being able to lead the country. If you have a person coming in that has a globalist um ideology and is looking what to do what they feel is best in their interest, or what fits their best interest with our tax dollars being attached to it, then that's when America will start to suffer.
Right.
Because the whole idea of us, because obviously we're the United States, we have the strongest military, and I think the ones who come in with bad intentions, guys like the great white dope Joe Biden, think that they can just go in and impose their will upon other countries and just do whatever they want with other countries. This is the reason why when the great white hope Donald Trump was in office. This is the reason why it was, when he was in office, everything was calm, because he clearly didn't want any issues with any other countries. I mean, why should we depend on other countries for oil when we can be when we can be independent of energy, which is something that Trump wanted to put in. And the moment that he left and Biden came in, now Biden wants to go in and depend on OPEC for oil. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. What it does is that if other countries don't want to play nice, now we wind up getting into unjust conflicts that are in which are going to be funded by our tax dollars. And trust me, people will get rich. It just won't be the American people.
Right. And during that whole administration, you got to remember all those weapons, those Tomahawk missiles and everything was all paid for by our tax dollars. There was no private money that went into that.
Amazing. Of course, of course, and the reason being is because we have a fiat currency that can easily be printed up by the Federal Reserve at any time, in which in which can pay for for these very things that they don't necessarily have to put their money in, but they will wind up making money off of.
Right.
And we wind up not only paying for it through inflation, but then we also have our safety and have our safety and security compromised at the same time.
Right.
We live in a time now where people need to start really waking up. And if they haven't looked at, I mean, if people have been voting blindly, or or choosing not to vote at all, this is the one time now where you need to start looking into the type of people that are running our country.
Right. And I haven't. The only time I've ever voted was with, and I was young and I was dumb,
Mhm.
but I think I was 22 at the time, was for Clinton. And the only reason I voted for, well, I would say two reasons. One, I wanted my opportunity to vote because everybody says it's a great thing, right?
Right.
And two, even back then, vote Democrat because Democrats said so. They're the good guys,
Right. The,
right?
the, the, the very the very belief that was bestowed upon me and everyone else. You just vote for them just because they're for the the working class. Therefore,
Right.
they're for all people.
And what really, which the average American doesn't understand, is that when Clinton was in power, um, and he signed the NAFTA bill, when I found out what the NAFTA bill really was, between Mexico, America, and Canada, I was like, this thing was drawn up by lawyers. And no way did Clinton go through, they had thousands of pages to look through. There's no way. He was just told what it was and just signed it without any real, or he probably got a deal out of it and said, I'll just go ahead and sign it because it's going to benefit him. But do you understand what NAFTA did?
I know that Donald Trump criticized it,
Okay.
but before the viewers, tell them what the
Okay.
NAFTA was about.
Okay. So what NAFTA did,
Mhm.
you can say in a way it was a great thing. What it allowed was an American company, because it only dealt with 3 countries. An American company can go into Canada or Mexico and set up a business. A Canadian company could go into Mexico and America and set up a business. A Mexican company can go into America and Canada and set up a business. Now, the bad part about NAFTA was, like, for example, there was an American company that had disposed of toxic chemicals in big 55-gallon drums
Mhm.
and had a fenced area in the desert in Mexico. And the Mexican law doesn't allow toxic chemicals to be stored in the country. This was prior to NAFTA. And this particular country, because they were came down on by the Mexican government, they got fined and they had to leave and all that. So what NAFTA allowed to happen was, is you can sue the government if something like this happens to you as a private company. So therefore, they sued the Mexican government, if I remember, for so-called damages of $8 million. So 8 million Mexican taxpayer dollars was wasted to a private company that was storing dangerous chemicals that they knew was already against the law in Mexico. We had another incident where this tycoon from Canada came into the south of America and was setting up shop of funeral home accessories, which is actually a very lucrative business.
I heard.
So basically, what this guy did is he set up shop and made everything so cheap that the mom and pop stores that were all spread out through some southern states could not compete with the prices to stay in business. So what they did is they made a complaint. I think it was to the Supreme Court or maybe a state court, I don't remember,
Mm-hmm.
and to stop this guy from Canada. And he was a billionaire, by the way.
Wow.
And these people, at the most, might have had 1 million or 2 million over years of being in business. So they needed help. They were able to get this guy stopped. So what he did is he took up the NAFTA deal and sued. It was sued the American government for not allowing him to do business in America because of what NAFTA is set up to allow him to do.
Wow.
And then there was something that went on with UPS and FedEx or something like that in Canada, and something in Canada wouldn't allow one or the other, whatever. So one of them ended up suing the Canadian government. So all these people's tax dollars in all 3 countries are being wasted on this deal called NAFTA that didn't benefit anybody but rich, greedy privateers that they were willing to break laws or be unfair with business practices, that they took advantage of this.
Wow. And so also what it did was that it allowed the American companies to then take the jobs to another country.
Well, no, okay. So NAFTA only dealt with those 3 countries. It didn't deal with
Okay.
China or anything else. As far as like in Mexico, for a while on the border, all the way across, pretty much, you had like a lot of Korean companies going there because for a while, I think it was the 90s, we started seeing a lot of appliance products saying made in Mexico, but it was from a Korean firm because they had a plant down there. It's just cheaper for them. and so they wouldn't have to ship everything over. They can hurry up and make it in Mexico for just a little bit more, but all in all, with all the distribution, it was cheaper,
Right.
and that was good in a way. But that right there had nothing to do with NAFTA. That was something else. I forgot what that was, but that was something else.
Okay.
Um,
But basically, what NAFTA did was that, like, was that tax dollars can be used. I mean, can use into settling lawsuits
yes, yes.
for rich, for rich
Already
people.
rich tycoons breaking the laws or doing unfair business practice, which is basically breaking the laws in the other country that they're doing business in. That's what it was set up for.
Amazing. That is amazing. So a country, a U.S. based country can go into Mexico, can go into
Or Canada.
or can go into Mexico and
All three countries can do business in the other two countries.
okay. Okay, so you can have a business person from Mexico come in and and actually set up and actually set up an area to do business with
Right.
with other people, and then undercut, then undercut the other businesses, so that they can go out of business, and probably go out and and purchase the real estate, and expand their business.
Right.
You know how these people work, and then if if the people don't like it, then they can just immediately sue the government, and then our tax dollars will have to pay a person that is already established. Yeah, honestly, I think what it does is that it saturates competition, and it allows, businesses, yeah, like other business tycoons from other countries, to then take advantage of our
Of our tax dollars.
of our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's the reason why Donald Trump was saying that the NAFTA deal was a disaster.
Right. It was an absolute disaster.
Wow.
I mean, you got to really think about it. And I don't know why Americans don't get serious about things like this. And you got to understand, too, that this was a law that was passed by lawmakers, meaning that the public had no choice but to accept it. The public had no choice but to accept it because they didn't get a chance to vote on it. I think a lot of laws that are passed by these lawmakers or written up by these lawmakers should actually allow the American public that works for them or supposed to work for them actually be counted in on the vote, whether if they say yes or no. Because you got to really think about it. Something like that has a huge impact, and it may not understand, but that helped create inflation. Every time there's a lawsuit under NAFTA, it helped to create inflation in this country as well as Mexico and Canada.
Amazing.
And that's not fair.
Right.
That actually hurts people's lives. If it hurts your livelihood through taxes, you're going to be taxed more because taxes were taken to pay for a lawsuit. Think about the impact that has, along with all the other shenanigans of where our tax dollars are going.
Are going to. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why, guys like like Obama, who I believe Obama was the one that set up and signed the NAFTA deal. These guys, I think the American people were clearly blind towards what this man was doing. I think Obama did a good job in trying to manipulate the people and thinking that he was going to do something for the American people. But you have to understand one thing: he was a Democrat.
Yeah, and also you got to look at it like this. He was like through his whole campaign, no against LGBT, no. And as soon as the day, not the inauguration, the day the vote was in, he's out there in Chicago, I think it was, at night, with Oprah Winfrey in the crowd outside and all that. The day he won is the day he announced he's pro LGBT. I was just like, what in the world?
There you go.
Like what? That was so you
There you
lied
go.
to us this whole time, right? With your campaign, yes we can, yes we can, yes we can. I mean, in Africa, everybody was saying yes we can, right? But
Yes.
as soon as he did that, he's not. I'm going to tell you right now, he's not loved in Kenya. And that's where his dad is from. He's not loved in Kenya. He always had, there'll always be the people that support him because he was the first, quote unquote, black president of America. But he's not loved in Kenya because of the things that he did, especially that, and especially trying to impose it on Kenyans.
Yes. Do you right exactly? Do you know that the Biden the Biden administration is trying to do that? Kamala Harris is right now on an African tour going to
Yeah,
Kenya
yeah. Well,
and and and
yeah.
in Ghana and she's trying to impose the whole
Right.
LGABCDEFG agenda.
And she's been knocked down every time, especially in Zambia. The Zambians were saying, because Kamala Harris used to live in Zambia, I think for like a year when she was a child. Her grandfather lived there, so she went to go live with him.
Wow.
And she's from India. So the thing is that when she went to Zambia, the Zambians were saying, Kamala Harris can come and see our waterfall, Victoria Falls, and go on safaris. But we're saying no to her politics. Let her be a tourist. That's
Good
what the
for them.
Zambians are saying. Let her be a tourist, but we're saying no to your politics.
Good for them. Good for Zambia. Good for Ghana. Good
Uganda
for Ghana, Uganda,
and Kenya.
especially and Kenya and hopefully all of the other African countries should follow suit. That's the one thing that I never understood about America, but I get it. America is this great country that helps out other countries, so it gives us this narcissistic aura.
But here's one thing. I know you said your parents were from Nigeria, right? I
Yes.
think you said that in Afrodama show. Okay.
Yes.
So the thing is with America, I think it helps some countries, but it doesn't help Africa at all. Because when you give aid to any country, all you're doing is saying, continue to live this way. Here's a little bit of money so you can put a Band-Aid on it. It is not aid is not building. Aid has nothing to do with the future of that country. All aid is there is to keep people in a position of where they were before you gave the aid. And so if that position is a bad economy and poverty is rife, all aid is going to do is to make sure that happens.
Okay.
So aid is, I mean, if you look at it, World War II, Japan got no aid. What they did is they pulled themselves up. That's a great example. They pulled themselves up from their own bootstraps, and they built that country back. Right? All America did was play security guard and still has a naval base over there. As patrolling the international waters. That's one of their stops. As you know, we're no longer in the Philippines doing that anymore. But aid is not something that's going to help anybody. So when the Chinese are over there, the Chinese said, well, and the Russians at a smaller scale, the Chinese and the Russians are saying, well, let's go ahead and talk resources for reconstruction or new construction. Because when colonialism left, basically nobody was left to learn how to really take care of the places. So it's just been patch jobs and stuff like this. A few IMF loans and stuff like that that are very expensive to help build up cities a little bit or railroads or whatever. But it's never really been at a scale where aid was not involved. So here we have China, who I'm not a supporter of, but if I had to compare the two, I would take China over America, being in Africa, because they're actually doing something that the people have seen some positive results. Like I'll just take Kenya, for example. I think we could have spent our money better on the sewage system in the city of Nairobi, which is horrible. But we have a new rail system that goes from the city of Mombasa to Nairobi. In 2018, the president, basically cut the red ribbon for her. And we have new freeway systems, in lots of places are still being built upon within the country that are much needed. And that's something that America and Europe has never, ever done. We have Russia, who commonly from time to time builds bridges in areas where they need them because they're experts at construction as well, especially in things like that. So we have them doing that. And plus, with Putin just recently going to South Africa and relieving the entire continent of Africa of over $20 billion in loans that he said, we're just going to wipe it. You're no
Right.
longer in debt to us. So what has America done? America has given aid to say, okay, you need to make this legalized. You need to make the rainbow legalized. Otherwise, you don't get aid.
Right. Obviously, what they're going to do is they're going to laugh at that and say, okay, well, hey, we're not doing that.
Well, you know what some of the presidents have said, more than one said, if we have to be in poverty, then so be it. This is not what we're going to accept.
Right.
We'll find our own way.
In which they have, because China and Russia are actually
Doing trade
yeah,
deals, which
yeah, yeah,
America is not.
right.
America is not doing trade deals.
Mhm.
A trade deal actually means you're doing business. Aid is not business.
And so if Kamala thinks that she can just come in and just throw a few dollars just to just to have them enact the homosexual belief, like the like what does that what does that say about us as a nation when it when it comes to relations with African with other African nations, other
Well,
go ahead. Mhm.
what it says to me is that you complain about colonialism. Well, we're gonna push that neo-colonialism on you, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. And we're gonna sanction you. Well, go ahead and that's what some of them are saying. Go ahead and sanction us because
Right.
again, you have China and you have Russia, and America's not going to do anything to them. America can't do anything to them,
Right.
and both of them are friends anyway. And China and Russia has always been a step ahead of America when it comes to their missile systems. Their missile systems are more accurate than ours, and have always been that way from over 30 years ago when I was a teenager. Right.
Right.
So even though their economy fell after communism fell, but they're built back up, and they're just as advanced now as they ever were before because Russia is like one of those societies where they take everything serious. When they send their kids to school, they have them, take apart and put back together an AK-47 within a matter of seconds. So if you can do that, right? These kids are learning not only how to handle a gun and take care of it, they're being responsible at a very early age. These make the best type of doctors, the best type of engineers, the best type of like teachers and things of that nature. Where in America, you don't teach them stuff like that. What you teach them is, okay, here's somebody from the Tenderloin here in San Francisco is going to read us a book about penguins, and you're all going to have to sit here and enjoy it now, right? So what type of society are you building when you do that in comparison to what Russia is doing by teaching kids responsibility? Even in Japan, in Japan, they have this culture of teaching the kids starting from grade school to clean the classroom, clean the hallways. They all partake in it. And their idea of that is we're teaching them responsibility at a young age. You try to implement that here, what are you going to get? You're going to get moms calling the school saying, I'm going to get a lawyer because this is what do you call it?
Child abuse.
Child abuse, child labor,
Or the child
you're abusing child
child
labor
labor.
laws.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
Amazing. Yeah, and this is the reason why the military is just as strong, especially especially China's military. The thing is that they don't take like the very things that that we do that makes us the that right now makes us the laughing stock of the country. The other countries are not into that. They're actually into into their own people, and they're also looking to investing into other countries that are willing to align with them.
Right.
And I can understand Ghana wanting to do business with China, um and Uganda and Kenya wanting to do business with China as well, because they're actually helping, in which and then they're doing trade, which in return is going to allow them to align themselves uh, with each other. So aid to, I mean, I heard that Kamala came in with a $60 million deal, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
The deal is, we'll give you $60 million as long as you allow people to come in as well as your citizens to bend over backwards on the couch.
Absolutely.
It's you know what I found out recently in Zambia. China's been doing business in Africa for well over 100 years. Like in Zimbabwe, they built the original airport there, the international airport. It's still being used today. And they got a new one now, also was built by China. But the original one was built by the Chinese many decades ago. And I didn't know that till recently. So it's like, and the whole thing about China taking over, China hasn't taken over anything. Unless you're talking about contracts to build a road. But once they're done, then if they're not contracting them to maintain it, they're going to use their regular old citizens who have those types of businesses to maintain it. You know, they didn't take over any port in Mombasa, Kenya. They didn't take over the airport in Zambia and
Wow.
Zimbabwe. It's
Just more lies, right?
it's more lies. Like they're in debt to China as far as money. But the thing is also we also give them a lot of resources, because that's mainly the deal. But there are loans involved. Oh, most definitely there are loans. Like our train system that we have in Kenya is definitely a loan. The highways are definitely a loan, and we are in debt to that. But I think that's one of the reasons we're in debt so much in Kenya, is because Kenya as a country hasn't been given that many raw resources. Whereas you go to Angola, they're given tons of resources from the ground into China while they build the infrastructure. So it's a different business deal.
Wow.
So basically, our highways are going to have a toll system. So for trucks and stuff like that to go faster and get out of traffic, there's going to be a 30-year toll system to pay off the loan.
Amazing. Yeah, the Chinese are are out there building infrastructure, and 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 by doing that, they're getting more alliance. You know,
Right. And the biggest thing is
it's
building the roads or repairing roads that haven't been worked on in decades. I mean, the roads are the lifeline of any country, because with roads that are operatable is where all other industry can be able to work in and out of areas efficiently to get their supplies in and out.
That's true.
You got to have those roads.
That is true. One that's true. 100%. That it's really more of the commerce highway.
Right. I mean, if you look at
Commerce.
America as the number one example in the world that roads work
Hmm.
for business. Without roads, there'd be a lot of truckers out of work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In America, a lot of people would be out of work if there were no trucks, because trucks are still the number one and by far transport more products than trains and planes put together. Because even whatever starts on a plane or a train either gets there and comes off of a truck first.
Right. So you see, you need those roads.
Exactly.
Amazing, amazing. And Africa sees that with China, and I mean, and they clearly see the importance of having China, as an ally to provide that. I think I remember watching a report where a German reporter came in and was asking scrutinizing questions to, I believe it was I think it had to be one of the vice presidents to I believe to Uganda, saying that there are too many Chinese living within the country, and um and the person, yeah, and the person came in and said, what is your problem? Obviously you know we do business with China, and yes, the Chinese people can live here if they want to. You know, what
Yeah,
what is your concern about that?
yeah. Um, there is an influx, just like all over the world. There's Chinese illegal immigrants, and thing about Chinese illegal immigrants, man, they look like the regular Chinese businessmen that's there illegally, right? So you wouldn't know unless you actually check their documentation. But we had a poaching sting in Kenya. I think it was like 5 years ago, where
Oh,
this man and woman in this house hired some local Kenyans, like three of them or so, to poach all different kinds of animals. And when they finally raided the house
mhm.
that they had, like elephant tusks, skulls, I mean, all kinds of different things. They even found a live turtle there, and I guess that was going to be killed for something, probably the shell, as a tortoise. Basically, the people in the area were complaining of a smell of something was dead coming from the house. So basically,
Oh, wow.
they were operating out there for 10 years, but for whatever reason, this one particular day or a week or something, the smell got out and they got raided, and they were deported, and they were there for 10 years, saying that they're a legitimate business company. I forgot what type of business they said they were in,
Oh, wow.
and they were legal. But then we've had raids in South Africa and Kenya of illegal immigrants from China being there. We had one restaurant in Nairobi where they wouldn't allow anybody that was black in after 5 p.m. It was Chinese only, because after 5 p.m., what they were doing in that particular restaurant, unless you're a dignitary, like an MP, they were allowed in. But those people were already known, so they didn't get questioned at the door. And what was funny too is that they had Kenyans working there, and they had to tell other Kenyans they can't come in because of the color of their skin. But what the Chinese were doing after 5 p.m. is that they had little, like, motel rooms set up upstairs of the restaurant, and it was a brothel for Chinese men because they had Chinese women as prostitutes. So that's why nobody.
Wow.
I guess what the real reason is, it's not because, in my opinion, it's not because they're black. It's because there are actually people there. They probably would have. They could have worried about the employees too, but they probably worried about a whistleblower saying, "Hey, after 5 p.m., they got prostitution going on in that restaurant." I guess that's where they made a big bulk of their money.
Okay, and prostitution is illegal in Kenya.
It's illegal. Yeah,
Amazing.
sex tourism is illegal, like most
Wow.
countries.
Okay. Well, apparently not in South America, but I guess that's a whole different.
Well, no, some countries there are. I forget which ones, like which order. Like there's this big thing with this guy named Austin Hollerman, who got basically ran out of Brazil because he was treating women like prostitutes. He's one of those passport bros. So he's a sex tourist, and the passport bros almost 100% of the time try to claim they're not, but it's just a club for them to say that they're not, and they're going there for the culture, which everybody knows that's not what they're going there for. It's always 100% prostitution.
Right.
So, but I would have to check again to find out which South, like in the DR, it's legal. It's definitely legal. It's legal on that island.
No,
You
okay.
know,
In Dominican Republic.
yeah, DR is Dominican Republic,
Right.
so it's legal there. However, with a lot of the Americans going down there and causing trouble,
Of course.
The government last year was debating on whether they should make this go from legal to illegal, sex tourism, prostitution. They're thinking about doing that because they were going down there flexing and stuff like that. Just causing a lot of problems in the public eye on international news, and they don't like it.
That is amazing. See, they think that they can that they can keep um a good thing going for themselves, and then they have to screw that up. Well, the thing is, honestly, um, when you reach a certain age, marriage is always the way to go. But you still have you have your slut makers out there that will still want to go out to to places like the Dominican Republic, just to go for that particular reason. But it looks like that will be shut down as well.
Yeah,
Amazing.
when you say the word slut maker, a lot of women get tricked into, if you sleep with me, here's some money, this and that, and they're not even prostitutes. But once the money is transferred hands to that, now she does become a prostitute, and she doesn't understand why. So what you're doing essentially is you're creating a slut maker by manipulating that woman, because all these guys ever do, and it doesn't matter what country a guy comes from, all these guys ever do is that they only want to deal with prostitutes because after the deal is done, they don't have to answer to that woman. And some of these guys are married. This is like their release, so they don't have to answer to their wives. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
I remember growing up, and I remember the old heads. I don't know if you know that term, the old heads.
Get the older guys.
Yeah, the old heads would try to convince us young guys, oh yeah, you should get with the prostitute. They're the best women, this and that. And lo and behold, you wouldn't believe how many the young guys would listen to these guys. So that's why this manosphere thing, the white manosphere, the black manosphere, these young guys need to stop listening to those guys, because those guys are crazy. Those guys are those guys.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because the main thing that they want to do is promote, is to promote, men from wanting to have, multiple women outside of their either of their own relationship, or just having, just going out and just being slut makers
Right.
just all the way around.
Because the thing is, these guys that are, because the term sex tourism means that, or sex tourists means that you are coming from your country to another country to get with a prostitute. That's what makes a sex tourist. You can't be a sex tourist in your own country. However, you can still participate in being involved in prostitution by doing the same thing. The only thing that you're not in your own country is a sex tourist because you live there. Now, these guys who travel to do this, when they come back to America, a lot of them say, well, I don't do anything for 10 months till I get my next vacation to go back to the DR. Majority of those guys, that's not true. They get the local, if they're in Reno, Nevada, they're going to get the local Reno, Nevada prostitute. If they're in Los Angeles, they're going to get the local Los Angeles prostitute. They're not going to wait 10 months. And they still do the prostitutes because they still don't want to deal with the responsibility of having a relationship with a woman. That's really what it is. And
right, it's just for the release.
Right. And basically these guys don't want relationships in these other countries because it's the same thing. They don't want to answer to these women in real life.
Right.
They don't want to worry about having to get a gallon of milk at the store because you had a milk in the house. This is crazy nonsense that these, and women do it too, but this is crazy nonsense that these men don't want a normal life, but yet they're ruining people's lives by continuing to be involved in prostitution and creating slut makers, and then later on ruining their lives. So
right, but life life is all about, it's all about choices, and the type of choices that you want to make. I think people who, who are led, who are led by God, that are led by the Spirit, then um, they won't have to worry about, they don't have to necessarily worry about going down that path. But again, it's a choice that people eventually are going to have to make. You have to be able to sit back and decide what kind of man, are you going to become.
Right.
That's the truth. But one more thing that I wanted to bring up on the show. Oh yes, how do you feel about the uh so that there was a young man that was recently uh apprehended for releasing, I mean, for leaking out classified documents about the war in Ukraine.
Hmm.
Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is that he should be arrested for treason because that is treason. But the thing is that what he is able to prove, and this is no way supporting what he did, but what he was able to prove is that he can go in and do something like that. And I don't know the full details, but I heard he wasn't even like somebody who's really a top tier person, but he was able to get
He wasn't.
classified information and then release it on Discord, which Discord is usually a bunch of people arguing with each other, like you see on some of these YouTube channels,
Right.
or where gamers go together and talk about techniques. It's just in a way it kind of sounds like okay, maybe it could have happened, but let's say he actually did that, but maybe that's not the way it went down. It also kind of sounds like to me maybe the government cooked up the story like it actually happened, but it didn't happen where this guy went to Discord. He went to somewhere else and then said he went to Discord and then probably planted that information there because because it just sounds too convenient to me. I don't think that he would able to really get that type of information unless he was seriously being covert. Because was it the Pentagon? Was that where it came from?
Yes. Yes. It was.
Okay, because the Pentagon, and I've met people from the Pentagon, and for years I've seen the stories. They have cameras absolutely everywhere. Everything is monitored. Everything is tapped. All the phones are tapped. It's like, how in the world are you going to get information out of there without there being any types of checks and balances when you leave? I really don't. I see some loopholes in the story that don't make no sense, and I really can't trust fully the story because obviously, okay, if it was at the Pentagon, that means the Pentagon gave the story. So I don't trust the Pentagon giving an absolute accurate story to the public.
Absolutely. Yeah. I, obviously, I believe that there's more to the story, and there should be more, and there should be more to come. But just the simple idea that a person that's not even an intelligent analysis, person that doesn't even, that's really not in the boardroom, um, making decisions with the top government officials, and he has access to sensitive, classified documents that he chose to leak. Clearly, it's a drop in the, truly, I believe it's a ball drop, by the Biden administration. But I'm not really too surprised about that. Um,
Let me tell you something else that people were asking the question, and the FBI never ever gave an answer, not a straight answer, and never gave an answer to the question that some people had asked. So remember Timothy McVeigh, and don't say the B word, but you remember Timothy McVeigh and what he did
right.
when they put state execution on him, right? Where's his body?
They never. I don't think it was ever. I don't think it was ever reported.
Right. And every time somebody had tried to ask that question, there was never an answer to the question.
Mm.
It was absolutely ignored. And so it kind of tells me that maybe he is the guy who did it or didn't, or maybe he was willing to be the face, because back in those days, in the 80s and I think that was the early 90s,
Mhm.
back in those days, it used to be a big deal, or conspiracy theories, that the government would hire somebody to do some type of dirty job like that, and then the agreement is they'll get plastic surgery afterwards, so their identity's totally changed. So
Wow.
so whether he actually detonated that or not, and we don't know where he's buried, we don't have any proof that he was actually executed. How do we not know that he was one of the people that was willing to take the blame, but his identity has changed and he's living somewhere in the tropics? That was always the thing, somewhere in the tropics.
You know, I mean, you know, we don't know,
Right.
but 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 then again, nothing. Yeah, and again, nothing has been confirmed. And
Right.
the one thing that we do know for sure is that the government lies. So it could,
Right.
you
And
know,
with something like that, it should be cut and clear. You say you executed him,
right.
and you have that on record that you said you executed him. No one got to see the execution because it wasn't filmed for the public in any kind of way. But to answer the question and then not even give an answer to that question, like where's the body, that right there alone tells you that this is very well, could be a cover up.
Well, true. Do you believe that Epstein committed suicide?
Who?
Jeffrey Epstein or
Epstein?
Epstein?
I don't know. I never really got into that. I don't know really the details on that.
Yeah, it's look, it's possible. Just the same way that you explained with 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 Timothy McVeigh not being, you know, not having no one knows, no one has a record of his body being uh buried. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, there's definitely a lot of cover ups, or there could be a cover up, because the one thing that we know about the government is that anything that they want covered up, they can just have it classified.
Right.
If they have to record it,
After
they,
so many years.
after so many years, they can just classify it, and then and 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 and, and just be done with it, and have the American people guess as far as what happened, or what they could do. They can just tell you what happened, and they can leave it there. So yeah, it's a lot of things. Yeah, it's a lot of things to come when it comes to that. But
Yeah.
the thing, the main, the the very information that came out, or the very information that was leaked, as far as um officials saying that Ukraine was winning the war, and
Oh yeah,
the,
that.
the documentations are proven otherwise.
What
Um,
what well, in other countries, they
mhm.
were announcing on the news the truth that Ukraine is not winning the war.
There you go. There you are.
It's just, I don't know. But let's look at
So,
this. Let's look at this. When I came in on your show, like I said, I didn't get the beginning. Where are the weapons of mass destruction? Okay, let's switch this up a little bit. Where is the body of Timothy McVeigh?
exactly. This is the reason. This is the reason why the title. This is the reason why we have the title of why people do not have faith in the government. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but yeah, we'll leave it there. KBM, this has been an amazing. You just made an amazing show. I appreciate you for coming on, and and obviously, I will be having. I'm going to have another show. What's today? Today is it's Sunday. So yeah, I will be coming up with another show next week. This has been an amazing conversation. Uh, thank you, thank you very much, and I appreciate you being a part of the show.
You're welcome. Thank you
For-
for having me
for-
on.
No problem.
Yeah, I got to get going myself. So it was a pleasure being here, having this conversation. I usually don't get into politics because I hate it with a passion. But this is history that's past, and the little bit of the present, is still up in the air. Who knows? Someday, if we say the so-called wrong word, I just watched a Prego, was it Pregu?
Prager,
Pregu,
Prager, you.
yes, video today, and that the FBI, they have these key words that are considered like radical. Red pill is one of them, and banned, like you ban somebody from coming, or no, BANDED. Those words are
What?
considered like controversial.
Talk about an attack on our First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, bro.
All right.
Hopefully I can do something next Sunday. If not, just keep plugging away.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Same here. Amazing. That was KBM. Um, uh, a uh, a devoted subscriber to my channel. This was amazing. This was the longest that I've had that I had this show running. We got into some nice topics, and obviously I want people to start to open their eyes and their ears to what is going on and start paying attention um, to what the government is doing. Any time, I mean, now, we want used to live in a country that we thought was free, where we'd be able to say, say the very things that we wanted to say, without having to worry about being canceled. And yet they're willing to cancel anyone that doesn't believe, or that doesn't go along with what is considered politically correct. I mean, they went and canceled the Great White Hope and taking them off of Twitter, and now look at the very things that they're putting Donald Trump through. But he will also prevail. But he will prevail through all this because he is the Great White Hope. But thank you guys so much. Um, this has been another great evening, and I will see you guys next Sunday. And with that being said, this is the conservative, and I'm signing out. Thank you guys so much. Amazing.